Welcome to M Go Bucks. Thanks a lot for joining us again. Please like and subscribe. And we're all licking our wounds, Michigan and Ohio State fans alike, licking our wounds from the weekend on the playoffs. It feels like it was forever ago, but we're both teams lost, Michigan and Ohio State, in dramatic fashion, especially for Ohio State. But man, here with Brian. Brian, how are you?
I'm finally, I think, over the shock of it all. It still stings. I'm with you. That was got to be the worst way to ring in a new year that I could imagine, with that kick being shanked. But I overall, I think it's starting to set in that we're not going to be playing on Monday, and neither's Michigan, and it stinks. I mean, we were both programs were so close. I mean, really so close. Couple plays here or there, and we could have had that Ohio State Michigan championship game that a lot of us wanted. And and even with Michigan losing earlier in the night, to have Ohio State lose like that, and for neither team to have a chance at winning this championship, I definitely think at least one of those teams was the second best team in this whole thing. So,
well, maybe
we'll see.
I mean, Ohio State played like they were the second best, even though Michigan trudged them by 3 touchdowns, but that doesn't matter. Hey, I don't want to pass over. Diego joined us too. Diego, how are you? Thanks for joining, man.
Doing well. Thanks for the invitation.
What would Ohio State Michigan podcast be without an obnoxious Maryland fan chiming in every once in a while? That's what I want to know. That's what I always say.
I don't know. What would it be? What would it be?
Exactly.
Diego, what's up, man?
Good to see or not see you. Good to hear you, I guess.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done a pod together.
Yeah. Back in the old movie pod days, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to get into the playoff games. Going to get into Jim Harbaugh. Is he staying or is he going? Who would replace him? But I wanted to just say one thing about Demar Hamlin. Thoughts and prayers go out to that dude, go out to his family. That was a vicious hit. I saw it live. A lot of us probably did. Man, really, really thinking about that guy.
Yeah, supposedly there's been some progress, minimal, but some progress in the last 24 hours or so.
Well, and I want to say, the same thing for T. Higgins. Football is a collision sport, and that hit, from all indications, there were no pre-existing conditions or anything with Hamlin. It's just a freaky thing, and that is an absolute lightning strike. I mean, we all know that football is it's a violent sport. It's potentially a dangerous sport. You're going to get hurt if you play that sport. But for something like that to happen, that is an absolute lightning strike. That, getting hit in the perfect spot at the perfect time in the perfect rhythm of your heart to stop it like that. And thank God for the preparedness and the responsiveness of the medical staffs of both teams. And, like you said, it sounds like he's slowly on the road to recovery. So, thoughts are definitely with him and his family.
Yeah, I had never heard of commotio cordis, which is what they think it was. I'd never heard that term before in my life, and hearing that apparently younger kids can get
in Little League. Yeah. In Little League, Diego. I mean, that's what was scary. It was like, what? I'd never even heard of that. That you take a line drive to the chest, and occasionally there's 20 or 30 cases of it a year. The kids, it just not just in that sport, but in sports in general, not just football. And that's certainly not to take anything away from the risks of playing football, but you can't conflate the two. That's scary.
Yeah, apparently the last real famous person to have the issue, or at least the one I read about, was Chris Pronger. Chris Pronger got hit with a puck right in that spot, and he had to be revived. Like he was near death, I guess. And if it weren't for the medical staff, he wouldn't have survived.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we get to learn about this a little more. I mean, it got so much press time. Like hopefully we learn about this a a little bit more on what causes it and what they can do about it, because obviously it can happen. I mean, it was a vicious hit, but it didn't seem like it was that vicious, did it?
I mean, it was a hit.
I mean, that's easy for me to say, oh, sit on my couch, right? But
yeah, I think it was a hit in the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolute lightning strike. It's crazy. But the interesting thing, we were talking, Diego, before you got on about, certainly because we are Big Ten fans, we're not going to maybe necessarily be as excited about this championship game as other fan bases are. But, the Hamlin news that whole incident has definitely, it's taken over the news cycles, not just in sports, but in every outlet. And so it is a little wild that there doesn't seem to be as much excitement or enthusiasm about the championship game. And obviously I'm not trying to compare anything or say anything that insensitive about that. You would expect that in a situation like this, but it's it'll probably ramp up as it gets closer. But man, I mean, to think about where we all were heading into those games on Saturday, as opposed to where we are now, it's just wild. Like Nate said, it seems like it was a million years ago.
Yeah. Let me just say one more thing about Demar's incident before we move on to football or to talking about football. If in case anyone wants to donate, he does have a GoFundMe page. It was originally a toy drive, but it's become his own personal place for donations for him and his charities. There's a message on there from the family that explains, basically the fact that the fund will no longer just be for toys for his charity. But in case anybody's interested in donating, the Chasing M's Foundation Community Toy Drive on GoFundMe is where you can find it. And there's a picture of him. And like I said, you'll be able to figure out, if you're interested in donating, you'll be able to figure out that it is in fact his charity. So for anybody interested, go out and donate whatever you can.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Diego. That's good to know. Man, praying for that guy. I'm guessing he's probably not playing football again, which is the least of his worries, but just hope the dude's okay. He can live his life.
He's definitely not playing anymore this year, but Chris Pronger played 12, 14 seasons, something like that after his incident. And, I don't think his was as serious as this one, but I think there's a decent chance if he makes it out of this that he plays again. But, again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm just speculating based on what I've read. But, hopefully he'll be able to do everything he wants to do in life, whether that's continue playing football or doing something else, maybe running a charity. Maybe running a charity after all these donations. Yeah,
maybe he'll have the money for it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's address this elephant in the room. At least for me right now, the biggest offseason story. I'm a Michigan guy, and anything that affects Michigan usually is interest to Ohio State fans too. But Jim Harbaugh, man, like Brian said something right before we were on here. It's like he said, "Shit or get off the pot." Like he's constantly flirting with the NFL. There's always rumors. It's affecting recruiting. I want Jim Harbaugh to go at this point. Like we've just went to the playoffs twice, beat Ohio State 2 times in a row, 2 years. We have 0 top 100 recruits in the top 100, and it's not because of NIL. It's not NIL's fault. Michigan actually is doing decent, not good, but decent with NIL. Lately, it's all because kids don't even know who the coach is going to be. Head coach leaves, their position coaches leave. Like I'm ready for Jim to just get the heck out. He obviously wants to go. Brian, what do you think on this?
The longer that there's uncertainty, the worse it gets. And the fact that he's done it kind of 2 years in a row, and he's not, he's kind of come out and said, I expect to be the Michigan coach next year. But man, you went and took an interview on signing day last year. So credibility, with stories like this is not the greatest for him. And of course it's going to affect the confidence level. And what's weird is like I can understand if the reports are true that he is truly frustrated with the state of the college football game. I get it. I totally get it. I understand why there would be appeal to going back to the NFL. I think he feels like he's got unfinished business there. You can understand if, you want to go back and give that thing another shot. You lost the Super Bowl to your brother. That's got to be a little rough. I can also understand that, other than he's got a loaded team coming back, but Nate, if you look beyond, yes, he's beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row. That is huge. He has certainly got that program on the right trajectory after the embarrassment of, having his salary cut and all of that. But his record in bowl games is atrocious, and his record against top teams is still atrocious. Mm-hmm. It's buoyed by 2 years in a row of kicking the crap out of Ohio State, but there is still the track. He's still got a track record of not having success at the highest level in the sport. So, but yeah, the longer it drags on, the worse it gets.
Oh yeah. Do you know what his bowl record is? He's won once. Literally one time. And that was his first year in 2015. He beat a poor Florida team. Terrible.
Yeah, it's been bad. And his record against top 10 teams has been bad too.
Yep.
It's been buoyed by these last 2 wins against Ohio State. But if he didn't have those, or if Ohio State would have won even one of those, but that said, you do have a really good team coming back. They've addressed some issues in the portal already. You've got J.J. McCarthy coming back. You've got Donovan Edwards coming back. So if he does stay, he's set up for what should be a pretty successful season. I just don't understand why he can't be more definitive about it, unless he really is holding out hope and he just hasn't been given that offer. And he really is going to wait until, he's exhausted all those opportunities. And it doesn't help that the NFL season is not completely over yet either. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, man. I certainly wouldn't want to be. I don't envy your position or Michigan fans' position, sitting in purgatory waiting on this guy to make a decision.
Yeah, that's a great term. It's purgatory. Exactly. Michigan, and coaches lie. He says he's going to be back next year. Coaches all lie. They seriously do. I don't take what they're saying now, not even with a grain of salt. It's going to get to the point where he's going to have to shit or get off the pot. But the transfer portal right now ends January 17th. So I really, really hope it happens soon. I hope that he leaves. And I hope we get a college coach to come after this. Not another NFL guy, not Sean Payton. Not that he would be a bad coach at Michigan, but he's an NFL guy. I want a college coach where recruits know that, he's just not going to be darting off to the NFL or, Dallas Cowboys come, calling and it's like, ooh, I like that. Shiny object.
Nate, let me ask you, where do you come down on if Harbaugh is to leave, if he were to pick, his own successor, Moore or one of the guys that are already in the program to take that over? Because by all accounts, it seems like Moore is a guy that he trusts, a lot like Marcus Freeman was for Brian Kelly when Brian Kelly left last year. Where would you come down on someone who's already in the program being if Harbaugh were to leave, to handpick a successor?
Good question. I don't know about Moore, honestly. He's a great position coach. Great. What he's done with that offensive line and with just offensive coordinator total, it's been fantastic. I don't know if he can be a good head coach. I don't know how good of a recruiter he is. Those things kind of matter in college football.
That's fair. But absolutely fair.
I would love to. It would be great. He seems like a great coach, so it would probably be a great hire. I just don't know about the other skills that it takes. Those other guys, yeah. I have been, Mike Hart is being talked about too, but he's a position coach. Maybe that would happen, but I don't see that happening. They really need to get a coach who's seasoned, who knows how to be a head coach, CEO type, is a great recruiter, because that's really where Michigan is falling short. Hey, Diego, you're just getting closer and closer to the camera and just showing off. Is that on purpose?
Well, you want him to hire Mike Loxley?
No, I definitely do not. Actually, you know what? I'm very ambivalent on Loxley, but he's known for being a recruiter, and sometimes I wonder how you could get fewer Maryland recruits on any given recruiting season. So fewer good Maryland recruits, I should say. Top of the top 25.
Brian and Diego. There is one guy out there who's a legendary head coach that is just kind of sitting in a booth.
Urban Meyer
on Saturdays.
Urban Meyer.
I mean, why are we not going to say that? I haven't seen a lot of people say that. I haven't watched a lot. I'm sure someone has, but he's an Ohio guy. He coached for Ohio State. Urban Meyer had Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame as the three schools he was going to get out of his contract with. I think it was Utah. Michigan was one of those teams. And it's not like Ohio State has an opening. So that there is definitely like an elephant in the room that people don't want to talk about. And that
dumpster fire
kind of is hitting it for me.
That would be an absolute dumpster fire. Yeah, I can't imagine. They've come so far into building the culture these last few years the way they want it. I think they'd be much better off staying in-house with someone who's helped to build that mentality up, especially the guy where have they been the toughest the last 2 years, Nate? On the entire football team, what unit? Offensive line. Why in the hell would you risk losing that? Like, you have an identity. It's blocking people, it's kicking the crap out of people on the line of scrimmage right now. And they are an absolute destination for not just if you're not doing well in the recruiting rankings, that's one place teams have shown over and over and over again. You can go into the portal and get quality offensive line guys that are 2-3 years into college. They're 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, grown ass men, and they can come into your program and you can kick ass with them. So,
it's true.
I really respect what they've done on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball the last couple of years with their young coaching staff. And even if Harbaugh left, I think it would be a huge mistake to go out and go through the same embarrassment and problems that they had through various coaching searches before. I mean, they practically had to beg Harbaugh to come in and stay there initially. So it's I don't know, man. I would stay far, far away from a guy like Urban Meyer. I don't think he's I don't think he's good for that established culture at all.
And Mac House just asked a question in the comments, said, would Michigan get behind Meyer not being a Michigan man? And, I think that
if he wins,
if he actually got, yeah, exactly. I mean, there was some friction when he joined Ohio State. He just got done a few years before that, beating them in the national championship game.
But he didn't have the embarrassment of. I don't think he had the embarrassment of the Jacksonville debacle and everything that happened. But, I don't think that he's. And not to mention, I mean, he legitimately does have health issues too. And I think there was some criticism that while he's an excellent evaluator of talent, both in terms of on the field talent and coaching talent, I think the game schematically has passed him by. And that
why do you say that?
Because he was an offensive guy, throughout his career, who was heavily involved in game planning, scheming. He may not have been calling the plays, but he was heavily involved in that up through the 2014, maybe the 2015 season. But even he realized that he needed an offensive mind that was next level when he hired Ryan Day, because they had sputtered for a couple of years and wasted really loaded rosters trying to run antiquated read option heavy, quarterback run heavy offenses. And you can run the quarterback, but you better be able to have some NFL and some spread passing concepts in your offense to be diverse enough to win these games. Even the king of defense, Nick Saban, realized that. You can't win these games 20-16 anymore, 16-12. You can't win these games like that. You got to be able to score. Look at the scores in the semifinal games. You got to score in the 40s to win big time football now.
Those scores surprised me a little bit, though. There was like no defense being played. It seemed like
it was crazy. I didn't expect it either, but man, I mean, that just shows you more often than not. Go back in these scores the last few years, and if you don't have an elite offense, you cannot win a national championship. You can't. That's why Alabama wasn't in this playoff. All four teams that were in you can say what you want to about Georgia's offense. They're a damn good offense. And, when push comes to shove, the four best teams arguably had the four best offenses in college football. Now, maybe USC, but they didn't have any defense at all. Tennessee, early in the season, had a really good offense, no defense at all. I mean, you have to be able to get some stops, no question about it. You got to be physical, but you've got to be able to score to win, to be an elite team in college football today. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah.
No.
Hey, Dirchbrook Innovations just asked something interesting. It's like, did Urban have health issues, thus he left coaching? Furthermore, why would he go to UM after having after having his dream destination job of OSU? Like, it might have been a dream destination job at Ohio State, but Urban strikes me as a guy who could have multiple destinations. It wouldn't necessarily. I mean, Nick Saban went to the NFL and came back with his tail between his legs, and then went to his. I think Alabama is a rival of LSU. I don't know if they're not their main rival, but I know LSU certainly thought that was pretty shady when Saban went over to Alabama.
One reason you don't want Urban Meyer is you can't trust him. He'll be in the program for 2 years and he'll come up with some excuse to leave. He's much worse than Harbaugh when it comes to being someone you can't trust to be there. So that alone would make me not want him.
I just can't imagine. I can't imagine a situation where they would do that, where you'd get a board of trustees to get on board behind him, and I don't even think it's a realistic possibility. And nor, quite frankly, if I am in charge of that hiring search, if Harbaugh's gone, he's not a guy I'm even looking at. Like I'm with you, Diego. I want somebody. If anything, I'm tired of getting jacked around every year and having this uncertainty. I want somebody who wants to be there for 10 years.
Yeah.
So hopefully you get somebody. Yeah. And I think that it's got to be somebody with some continuity. One of my biggest criticisms when they fired Lloyd Carr and Rich Rod was right after that, wasn't he? Nate, wasn't he right after Lloyd Carr?
Right after Lloyd Carr. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes. And my biggest criticism about that whole deal was not that Rich Rod wasn't a good football coach. It was a completely different philosophy. They had their pick of NFL quarterbacks year in and year out under Lloyd Carr and hit in that offensive culture and system. And when they went to the spread, it was a completely different philosophy. They didn't even have the roster for it.
Yeah.
And they turned off the spigot to the NFL quarterbacks. So, no matter what, I think you've got to keep continuity with the style of football that they've been playing these last couple years and the culture of being tough as hell in the trenches, and that your whole program is geared to compete with Ohio State. And they need to do what Urban did at Ohio State was he wasn't just competing with Michigan anymore. He immediately set his sights on Alabama. And that's the level you've got to be ready to go into those semifinal games and win them. And that's what Ohio State's waiting on Ryan Day to do. We've shown, Ohio State has shown they can be competitive in these games, but they haven't won them consistently enough. And that's the next step. That's the next step. They definitely showed on New Year's Eve they belong there, and really without a pretty significant collapse in the fourth quarter, they should by all rights they should be in this championship game. They really should. I think it's a little different with Michigan because Michigan had too many self-inflicted wounds in that game. You can't throw 2 pick sixes in that game. You can't execute the way they did in the red zone and give up explosive plays and win that game. but they still had a chance to. That's the crazy part. But Ohio State, they played about as well as they played all year long in all three phases. It's just the explosive plays all season long killed them, all season. And the same Achilles heel bit them in the Georgia game. So, it's frustrating to get that close. And obviously you'd love to see at least a closer attempt at the field goal than we got at the end. But, all in all, they showed. I thought Georgia was the best team in the country this year, and Ohio State had them beat.
Hey, before we get into that, because that's gonna be like the next segment of this is those playoff games. But okay, so both of you, I want to get your predictions. So is Lloyd Carr? Listen to me. Is Jim Harbaugh gone from Michigan? I mean, is that a done deal? Do you think he's leaving? What?
I'm gonna
Diego first.
I'm gonna pull a 45. Yes. Simple as that. Yes.
He's gone.
He's gone.
I don't think it's even in his court. I really think it's going to be up to an NFL team.
No, assuming he gets an offer.
I just don't think that's a foregone conclusion. And if the one that I think would be the fit, obviously the most obvious fit is the Colts. But we haven't heard anything about that. Today they were talking about the Panthers. The Broncos have reportedly shown interest. I don't know. I mean, I would think if any team goes for him, and isn't it a violation of the Rooney Rule to not go through the hiring process anyway for these teams? So it seems a little odd that we're even hearing anything right now.
The Rooney Rule is a farce. Come on.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Of course it is.
Do you guys know of any issues between Irsay and Harbaugh where Irsay would not want Harbaugh? I mean, you would think he would be, a franchise favorite.
I'm not aware of any. No, I'm not. But who knows?
How many years did Harbaugh play for the Colts?
Yeah, but his family has to want to go too. I mean, when it didn't happen for him last year, I know I can guarantee you it was a done deal in some way. I don't know exactly what happened, obviously, but I know his agent and Harbaugh did not mistake going there for an interview for it just being an interview. He wouldn't do that publicly. Like they thought it was a done deal and something happened. No clue what happened, but something happened. Maybe Mrs. Harbaugh put her foot down and said, "Hey, I'm not moving to Minnesota." Yeah, I don't
think so. I don't think that had anything to do with it. I really don't. I think that the issue there is that he's a very demanding guy. And it wouldn't surprise me if when they got down to the final negotiation, because I believe he was acting as his own agent still at that time, that there was some ask that was just a bridge too far for Minnesota. And Minnesota, interestingly enough, of all the teams we've seen, like that team was ready to win because they hired a different guy and they're what are they going to end up being, the 1 or 2 seed, 2 or 3 seed maybe in the NFL or the NFC. Mm-hmm. So they were ready to win. And they weren't really in a position to get pushed around by Harbaugh. So
do you think maybe it was he wanted to, pick the players, be a GM and they didn't want him to be a GM?
Certainly could be.
Yeah,
could be.
The current Minnesota coach is not the GM, right?
I don't believe so. No, because they hired a younger guy. He was another one of these guys that, was in proximity to Sean McVay. So he must be a genius kind of guy. The Zach Taylors, all these guys. All you got to do is be on the staff with Sean McVay.
Yeah, can you believe he was a freaking Redskins, now Commanders coach?
Well, he's another guy, Diego, with Dayton, Ohio connections.
Oh, really?
He really is. Yeah, I believe it was his grandfather. Somebody was coaching here, and then he was here. But there's a bunch of guys that have been around the UD program and Dayton. In particular. So yeah, he's one of those guys.
Obviously Chuck Noll and Gruden.
Mm-hmm.
They've got 5 Super Bowls between them and they went to Dayton. So Dayton.
There was
rich history.
The other guy was if I remember right, I think the guy who's coaching I'm blanking on his name. The coach for the Chargers also had some kind of connection to Dayton.
Oh, really? Is it?
Yeah,
it
was.
What's his name? Is it? That's not Zach,
damn it,
right?
No.
Yeah, he's a young guy. Brandon Staley.
Brandon Staley. Yeah, Brandon Staley. Yeah, so interestingly enough, but the same deal. I mean, they went with a younger coach, and I'm sure that has to have something to do with it. I mean, those kind of, we've seen that happen with high profile coaches before, where the inability to control the roster ends up being a sticking point between the GM and the coach. And Harbaugh's, I mean, he's a hell of a football coach. He's a really weird dude. Yes. So, who knows? He could have said something just oddball that just was like, what are we doing here?
How is the question? The question is, how are two brothers from the same family so different? His brother seems so normal and so likable, and he seems so odd and just bizarre. Like, well, I guess that's the same thing, but he just seems so different than his brother. And it's very strange to me. Like, I don't know what Jim Harbaugh is thinking half the time, but he's not a normal kind of guy. I wouldn't hire him.
He's got some zingers. He's got some zingers in there.
He just says stuff where it's like just bizarre commentary.
It is.
Did you guys happen to see during the end of the Michigan TCU game where his dad was, they flashed up to his dad, and it was like about a minute to go in the game, and yes. Harbaugh didn't use the timeout. And he's like, on first down, he's like, what is he doing?
I saw that live.
I was yelling at Matt. Call the timeout. And Matt was like, yeah, I don't know what he's doing. And then they flashed his dad. His dad didn't know what he was doing. It was great.
Yeah. It was one of those fantastic minutes.
And one thing, Andrew commented, he said, I personally don't think Harbaugh leaves. He's already said he's going to be at UM in 2023. He may not leave. I mean, it may be that he does want to stay, and he's just using this to, get a better contract at Michigan. But coaches lie. He may have said that.
Yeah.
But coaches lie.
I just don't see him. I don't see him squeezing Michigan but he could. I mean, he could still be taking it personally from all the stuff that happened a couple of years ago. But even if it's just, I'm not going to say I wouldn't. But the thing I can see Harbaugh being one of those guys that, regardless, even if he comes back, he's going to say, "Oh yeah, I wasn't going anywhere all along." My ass. He's waiting for his. Yeah, you might not have talked to any teams, but your agent sure as shit has.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? And Harbaugh just turned 59. Like, I don't want to play the old card here, but he's probably starting to sense his mortality. And if he's going to go win a Super Bowl, he's got to go do it soon. Yeah. He can't just sit around at Michigan and hope for the best. If that's in his bucket list, win a Super Bowl, which I'm sure it is, he's going to have to do it. He's just turning 59. That'll make a guy think.
That's a great
what I mean?
And in the NFL, your success is so closely tied to a quarterback.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a good quarterback. And that's just one of those where, I can see him wanting the right situation or not going. Because why would you put yourself in a situation like that where, if you don't want the Denver job, are you stuck with Russell Wilson the way he's playing? That's why the Colts situation you would think would be ideal, because they're sitting there with a top 5 pick. You can almost certainly would be really interesting if CJ Stroud's on the board.
Well, yeah, maybe. And I was reading an article about Denver. Apparently, they're going through new management. They're not gonna. I don't know if they have a general manager. They're going to have one, but the head coach won't report to the general manager. He'll report directly to the CEO, which sounds exactly like what Harbaugh would.
Well, wouldn't you expect something like that out of Walmart?
Yeah. I just think it's a great fit for a guy who played for the Colts to go back and coach the Colts. I mean,
I just want him to take, if he does, I want him to have to take CJ Stroud. That would just be great. The Michigan guy with a
as long as he doesn't go to Detroit. As long as he doesn't go to the Lions, we're good with CJ Stroud.
They're picking the Lions are going to be picking too far down, man. He's going in the top 5. I think Bryce Young he'll be the first quarterback taken. But it's interesting because there's a couple teams up there that don't need quarterbacks necessarily. So
yeah,
I can't wait to see that. It'll be interesting.
Harbaugh doesn't like brand new quarterbacks anyway, especially in the NFL. Like he likes Russell Wilson seems to fit like a glove for someone like Harbaugh to go back in there and improve.
Isn't it interesting, Nate, that like he doesn't seem to like freshmen either?
Sorry, what did you say? He doesn't like.
I said he doesn't like freshmen either. No, apparently,
he doesn't.
I'd rather go with the portal and go get juniors. No more sleepovers at kids' houses. I'm gonna pluck guys out of the portal.
Exactly. So okay, put you guys on the. Sorry,
go ahead. Jim Harbaugh, would you want CJ Stroud or
speak up, Diego?
Are you not hearing me?
No, speak. Get a little closer to your mic.
Is my mic? Do you hear
You're
me now?
Good. That's better.
Maybe my mic's not working properly. No, I mean, I think a guy like Harbaugh is not going to want to start a rookie. He's going to want to play a veteran, and maybe he drafts a guy like CJ Stroud or a guy like Bryce Young. But I don't think that's the quarterback. If he ends up in Indy, I don't think that's the starting quarterback going in, to the season. No way. I don't see it. First of all, these guys they're not prospects. They're suspects. You don't have any, you can't be certain just because a guy's drafted top 5 is going to be any good anyway. I don't know. I would not.
Diego, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I really think you're spot on. There's no way that to Nate's point earlier about if a guy's got a short shelf life and he's in a win now mode, he's going to want a situation where he can come in with a veteran guy. I'm sure that's why Minnesota was an appealing spot to him.
Yeah. With
an established pro quarterback. And I agree if he's shown that he will adapt his offense to the skill set of the quarterback. And that was one of the most interesting things about I think this whole season with Michigan was from the beginning. I think he recognized that he had to go away from Cade McNamara and had to go with and live with some of the growing pains of a younger quarterback. It just so happened that those growing pains bit him at the worst possible time during the season. The absolute worst possible time for young quarterback problems to pop up. But I mean, I'll give him his flowers. He went and made a tough decision to go. And if you go back to his days in the pros, his best season was with Colin Kaepernick.
Very true. And he didn't go to JJ as a freshman though. Like I don't think JJ was probably ready anyway, but one thing, the little poke in my brain that says maybe he might come back to Michigan is, man, he's going to have a good team. And JJ is going to be better. JJ missed the spring with his shoulder injury. Completely missed the spring. There's a lot of development that happens for a young quarterback in the spring. Came right into the fall and started basically. So,
well, good thing for those preseason games, Nate.
That's happening this coming up year too. 2023. We've got
their schedule is
cupcakes.
Their schedule was trash.
Yep, and you know what? We weren't punished for it. As long as you beat Ohio State, which you got to do anyway.
That's right.
You're going to get in there and you can play. You could skip all 3 of those games and still get in there.
Nate, do you hear me better now or no?
I can.
I turned it off.
Okay, I need to put you guys on the spot a little bit here.
Okay.
Because I am thinking that Urban Meyer is in play if Jim Harbaugh leaves. Do you guys believe that? I mean, is Urban Meyer a candidate for Michigan? And
no.
Does he want to be a candidate? And does Michigan want him? Either one of those.
No.
No.
Not even a chance.
I totally disagree with you guys. I think he will be, but he may not end up there. There's a lot that would have to happen.
I don't think the Board of Trustees would even take him.
No.
I don't.
I don't. I think his reputation has been tarnished a bunch, personally and professionally, maybe even. Yeah,
I would not want that drama at all.
Nope.
Like at all.
Nope.
There's so many good young coaches in football, and And I think that to Michigan's credit, this was not a job that people really were jumping, tripping over themselves to, they weren't crawling over broken glass to play or to coach at Michigan 10 years ago. There was a whole string of coaches. They were begging people to basically come to coach. I mean, they begged Harbaugh to come back and coach there and restore the program, and he's done it. And it's a much more attractive job now than it would have been even 3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I don't think they would have any problem whatsoever finding a good coach. And I think you would want to go out and get someone that you can mold and that you have some confidence is going to be there for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be a Michigan man somewhere they can hire, right?
Yeah, sure.
By the way,
another Michigan man.
By the way, Frederick Meredith has a great question. Did Michigan's players take TCU lightly?
Yes.
Of course they did.
I think
absolutely they did.
I think
yes,
so.
they did.
That dumbass comment about if they stay in that 3-3-5, we're going to just run it down their throats that McCarthy had. Dude, what are you doing? What are you doing?
How many picks did he throw?
Only two
picks.
Okay.
Yeah, but they both went to the house.
Only two.
Yeah.
That's problematic.
It's interesting because there were 3 games at the end that all came down to 6 points. So Michigan's came down to 6 points. They couldn't come back. Georgia came back down from 6 points. They did.
They were 14.
And then Tulane did the exact same thing to Georgia. I'm sorry, to USC. 6 points they had to come down. So they all had to basically run a 2-minute drill in a minute to come down and actually get that.
By the way,
I thought that was interesting. But yes, TCU, they took TCU very lightly, and they got their asses kicked.
Nate, your long COVID persists.
It does.
Yes, you've been fighting coughing for about, 30 minutes now? You need a cough button is what you need. You need a cough button.
Yeah, and a bunch of cough drops. Yeah, man. I think that was a big problem. I think that Michigan was so confident that they had just annihilated Ohio State, which, again, if you go back to the film, yeah, they did on 2 big runs. They were moving the ball in the second half, but they hadn't ripped off any big runs until they ripped off 2 75-plus yard touchdown runs. And, the game got out of hand at the end, but they didn't run the ball consistently on that front either. Mm-mm. And, they got up against TCU, a TCU team. We talked about it in the preview. They were pretty battle tested because that conference was pretty damn good top to bottom. And they were more physical than Michigan was giving them credit for. And I kind of said, if the game goes the way TCU wants it to, and TCU can kind of get up on them and put the ball in J.J. McCarthy's hands, that plays into TCU's, the way they want to play that game. Now, to McCarthy's credit, he played really well in spots, but you cannot give up 2 pick sixes. And they were pretty bad throws. They were pretty bad throws. The out route was well covered on the first one. The second one, I don't know where the hell he was even going with that one. I think it was a hitch, and the guy just beat him to the spot. But that, it was and then the execution in the red zone that was just killing them. But yeah, I think they 100% took them lightly, and they thought because they had done a really good job against, Ohio State's receivers that they were just going to shut Quentin Johnston and those guys down. And I kind of said it in the preview that Quentin Johnston may be the best wide receiver in the entire in all of college football.
He's a beast.
Yes, they did a really good job on Marvin Harrison, and he still got his. Egbuka got a few of his too. But man, I mean, it was just it seemed like it was the same types of plays that they were getting beat on. Now, to their credit, they took advantage of TCU's secondary and had a lot of easy, deep throws. And I've never seen a game where the red zone got so weird in one game for one team. I mean, the first Philly special, please retire that play. I don't ever want to see that play again. I hate Philly special with a passion. Then the butt,
like the Wildcat. You can retire that with the Wildcat.
the catch, the touchdown catch that wasn't a touchdown catch, and then they go fullback dive, and the fullback, I don't know if he was reading the wrong play or what, but the ball never gets to him, and they ended up not getting any points. 2 times they're that close and don't get any points at all. No. In a game that was that tight. I mean, and you have 2 pick sixes. I mean, it was crazy.
So,
but yeah, I mean,
talk about the officials there, because it's like at the time, I was emotional. I was thinking, damn, they fumbled at the goal line. It's still their fault. I wish the official had gotten it right, but they fumbled at the goal line. Then I came back and thought about it that like the day later, and it's like, why do I not expect for the official to just get it right? Which I don't think he did.
Yes, he did. He got it right that he was down, and he got it right that they fumbled. On that,
the fumble, yes, but now we're talking about the receiver catching the ball before that. Like he bobbled the ball before and then recovered it in the end zone. So I think pretty much everyone thought that was wrong, except for you, Diego.
Apparently, I think the officials got those 2 calls correct.
And then we're talking about officials. Let's talk about the targeting too.
No, the other
one. Well, hold on. Yeah, hold on. Now let's that one. Let's go back to the touchdown, to the non-touchdown. To me, and again, try to be as objective as possible. Okay, it's borderline. I thought he scored, but you got the ball on the half-yard line. On first down on the half-yard line, and you're the biggest smash mouth bully offensive line in college football, and you cannot execute a fullback dive. That is on Michigan. That is not on the referees. It wasn't like that was like 3rd down or 4. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they didn't have another opportunity. And so to me, like, that is just crying over, spilled milk at that point. It's like that was a done deal. You had your opportunities. No one made them call that stupid trick play the first drive. No one made them call fullback dive. Those are all self-inflicted wounds. The 2 pick sixes are self-inflicted wounds. And then the inability to stop pretty simple route concepts, when you have pressures, those were all things that Michigan did to itself. So you have no one to blame. Nothing makes me more furious in a game like that, where there were multiple plays that turned the tide of that game to go to one call, especially if it wasn't at the very, very end of the game. Now, the targeting call, I don't know what targeting is. I don't know.
Me neither.
I didn't know several years ago when Sean Wade sacked Trevor Lawrence, and I don't know now. I don't know, the Marvin Harrison certainly looked like targeting. I thought it was targeting in the Michigan game. I think it would have been really shitty to give Michigan an extra play off of that, because the game was over for all intents and purposes. But, if it's a rule, then it's a rule, and enforce the rule. I don't know that anybody knows what the hell that rule is.
Yeah, and I want to go back to one thing, Brian, you were saying about the touchdown. Now, I'm not saying that one play had anything to do with them fumbling on the goal line or any of the other terrible executions and play calls that they had. But I still expect the official to get it right. You know what I mean? I don't think that necessarily has anything to do with what happened on the next play. That's what I was thinking the next day. Because I was like, but I still expect the official to get it right. And granted, they're officials. They looked at it. They saw what I saw. They obviously disagree with me. But I still expect them to get it right, regardless of whether they fumbled afterwards. Like that doesn't,
okay, but the point is that there is some question as to whether they had it right or not, right? I mean, it wasn't like it was a cut and dry play. We all have our opinions of it. I tend to think that he was bobbling it and he secured it again in the end zone. It seemed pretty similar, other than the spot, the fact that no one was talking about whether he caught it or not. He definitely caught it. It's just the question of where. And if that, let's say he had come down and somehow landed and the ball popped out, and you get into one of those situations, because we've had that happen. I've had that happen watching watching big games for Ohio State, where it's like you get into those questions of did he secure the catch or not. I mean, we had famous NFL playoff games come down to that, and at least that wasn't the situation here. My point is, it didn't stop Michigan from having the opportunity to score the touchdown. Totally. And they made the play that took them down there, and you can't ask for more than that. So, if there was a disagreement as to when he secured the ball, okay, it was not cut and dry, and even the replay, consultant that was on the broadcast said the same thing. So, I mean, but how many times are you watching football games where we go to replay and you have an opinion, the broadcasters have an opinion, and then it comes back and the referees call something different? I mean, I certainly felt the same way on Marvin Harrison's targeting call. How the hell do you call targeting on the field, go to the replay, and then rule it that it wasn't helmet to helmet contact? What are you talking about? Like, you can see it's helmet to helmet contact.
I'm wrong about targeting 75% of the time.
Did you watch the USC? Did either one of you guys watch the USC Tulane game?
No, but I was.
Did you watch the end of it? It was a crazy ending to that game.
I was like, that's targeting.
As soon as it happened, I'm like, that's targeting. He hit him with the crown of his helmet right in the face, and then that wasn't targeting. So I'm like, okay, I clearly don't know what targeting is. So I have no idea, man. I mean, it's just whatever. Just don't put yourself in a position where the referee's call is affects the win or the loss. Just don't do it.
Ohio State.
Guys, of course it did. But you know what? But it's still, even then, what affected it more was the fact that Marvin Harrison got knocked out of the game. Like, if he stays in the game, Ohio State wins that game. They do. They couldn't stop him.
If they score a touchdown, that might change the complexion of things too.
Of course. But the point is, if Marvin Harrison does not go out of that football game, Ohio State wins. And I was texting some people during the game. As soon as that happened, I said, win or lose, I do not want to hear any criticism of the Ohio State training staff for not giving him his helmet back. Like, if they felt like he was concussed, they did right by that kid.
Absolutely.
That kid's got a 15-year pro career coming up ahead of him. And, you got a limited shelf life with concussions, and they did the right thing. If there was any question at all, doesn't matter what the stakes are, you take that kid's helmet away. I was so proud of them for doing that. But it's just shitty. I mean, it's a shitty way to, those extra 4 points, you're winning the national championship. You're winning it. Whoever is coming out of the Ohio State-Georgia game, I said it before the game, I believe it now, the winner of that game was going to win the championship after Michigan was done. It erased any doubt in my mind that Georgia or Ohio State was going to win the national championship.
Okay, can we address, related to this, a couple different things? Okay, so one, we have, Dirch Brush Innovations, who's saying the refs.
That's Jonathan, by the way.
Oh, it is. Okay. The refs claim Marvin didn't get a concussion from the hit. BS. When did the refs say this, and how is that pertinent to the call on the field at the time?
It's not.
JB, what are you talking about?
Well, I think what he's saying is, like, how is the result of whether a guy gets injured or not should have no bearing on the call on the field. It either was or it wasn't targeting. It doesn't matter if the guy gets hurt or not. Like, it's a personal foul or it's not. And what bothered me the most is if you called it real time and the replay was that close. I mean, it was very difficult to tell. Did his shoulder hit first? Did his helmet hit? All I know is helmets collided. Helmet went into side of face. And that's what knocked Marvin Harrison out of the game. And so, was he a defenseless receiver? I don't know. But that's one thing that, like, across the board in this sport, they've got to get this stuff cleaned up because nobody knows what the hell the penalty is anymore.
Well, Brian, I think it's a difficult penalty because there's a lot of circumstances around it.
Sure.
So, for example, if you're a runner or if you're not a runner, you get different protections. And I mean, I think it's complicated. I don't know to what extent it's a bad rule, but to the extent that it's complicated, it's kind of incumbent upon all of us to learn all aspects of the rule, and certain complicated rules, the average fan's not going to learn. I mean, so I don't know.
I think it's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, Diego, did you see Tulane? Did you see the Tulane hit, Diego, by chance?
No, I didn't.
Former Buckeye Bryson Shaw.
And went head to head, and it was nasty looking. And it wasn't targeting. Like I said, I'm wrong 75% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's so close. It's so close. It's just one of those things where
about everything.
There you go, right?
Hey, that's a C grade.
It's not a football. It's not a football thing.
No, I think the one thing that's I guess the problem I have with any of those calls is when it's called on the field and they go to replay. What you've consistently heard is the evidence has to be clear to overturn it.
Indisputable.
And to me, there's no way that you can watch that hit by Bullard on Marvin Harrison and see anything conclusive.
So
if the guy down on the field,
not on any of the replays, I never saw head to head, and it might have been a head to head, but I didn't see it in any of the angles.
It didn't start that way. It didn't
like
start that way.
To shoulder. That's the way it appeared to me.
He hit him in the head.
Could have been targeting. I mean, who knows?
Right. But I mean, it's also one of those things where you're like, okay, the guy's he's completely defenseless because he's going for the ball. It looked like the ball was going to go out of bounds until the last second, and I think it was one of those deals where it was like Harrison had that reaction like, holy shit, I can actually catch this, and then Bullard had that reaction like, holy shit, he's going to catch this, and so he turned and launched at him, and I don't think it was a dirty play. I'm not saying that Bullard's a dirty player or anything. He hit him and he separated the ball, and I thought real time that Harrison caught it. I was flipping out because I thought he caught it, and then the ball, popped out, and it was like, then we saw the flag, and you're like, okay, cool, first and whatever, we're going to be down there at the, we're going to be in the red zone, and then they picked it up, and you go, well, that's messed up. Like, if the guy, it was so close. That's the problem I had with it. It wasn't necessarily the call. It was the fact that they overturned it.
Yeah,
with evidence that I felt like was just not conclusive. Now, I mean, it's the same deal.
I mean, they're kicking a guy out of the. They're kicking a guy out.
No, 100%.
They need to review it.
I had zero issue with it at the time, and who would have thought that play would be so pivotal in the entire game? I mean, it was literally a throwaway. I mean, because he's running backwards and chucks it, 50 yards, and he's just throwing it as far as he can. It just so happened it didn't go out of bounds.
Brian,
it's crazy.
Let's address a couple different comments here. So we've got one guy that reminds me of some people that we know very well who are conspiracy theorists. So I want to address a conspiracy theory that Andrew Lane has. I have been hearing, this is a quote, I have been hearing SEC officials wanted an easy matchup for UGA. So apparently, according to Andrew Lane, his sources are telling us that the SEC officials basically fixed the outcome so that Georgia would have an easier opponent. What do you guys think about that? I don't even. There's no
probably
way.
Not, but there are some optics there.
There were plenty of.
All right, Nate. No.
Okay, so why not?
No, but I disagree that the fix was in, but there are some optics there.
All right, I want to hear your optics. Brian.
Well, no. I mean, just that they're SEC, and I mean, generally, you probably want to have the ACC in there. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know.
You really think a bunch of refs give a shit?
No.
I certainly don't. Oh my God, are we both suffering from long COVID now?
Is it spreading through this podcast? No, I don't think that for half a second that's the case. There were plenty of opportunities. Just look at the 30-yard scramble by CJ Stroud. There was an absolute blatant hold by Matthew Jones on a defensive lineman. Like I told you going into the game, they never call holding in these games. Never. You could call holding on every play in football. Like I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear anything about. I believe it was a Pac-12 crew anyway. So like what the hell would they? No, that's why they do that.
Hold on. Isn't he talking about the Michigan game? Were the Michigan officials SEC officials?
Yes,
that would
that's what
make
he
more
was
sense.
talking
Okay,
about,
yeah.
was
I'm
Michigan
sorry. I'm
versus
sorry. I got
Michigan.
confused.
Yeah, he's
My bad.
He's talking about a matchup for Georgia. So,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to that at all. I think those crews are graded heavily to get even into those games.
Yeah.
And if there's even a sniff of impropriety in those games, there's no way. There's just I'm not going there. I'm sorry. I was confused on what he was talking about. But no, I mean, it's one of those deals where there are plenty of the thing with the Michigan targeting thing was the game was over. Like, it was over. There was no, unless that it was an absolutely blatant bonkers hit. And that was it was pretty borderline to me, but it was targeting.
Did you
I'm
think
not
that
going to
was
lie.
targeting?
I thought it was targeting by the rule because he hit it. He went after the guy with the top of his head. But again, like, I don't know what targeting is. I have no idea. I've seen what I think targeting is, and they don't call it. I've seen targeting called, and I'm like, that's not targeting. So I don't know, man.
So one thing that I've heard maybe in a game or two, for the announcers were saying that sometimes, or at least maybe they're supposed to be, the refs actually try to look at the motivation of the person accused of targeting. Like, were they actually like trying, were they really going in there and trying to light someone up?
Yes.
Now, granted, they were definitely trying to light up Marvin Harrison Jr., but I don't think they meant to be vicious about it. It was a vicious hit. It was a great hit. Dislodged the ball. But I don't think that the motivation was there. They probably rewatched that and they made some. They probably they probably made some. It's just all up to interpretation.
Well,
it's so much of it.
Well, like
That's why
I said,
you're not seeing
for me,
consistency.
that's like I said, the issue I have with it had nothing to do with. I'm not crying over it. I mean, it's. I feel far more. I think that the Sean Wade one in the Clemson game was far more egregious than this one. The fact that they picked it up, okay, but that was my problem. Was like it was called on the field, and I thought the video evidence had to be more conclusive than that. And if a guy got concussed, there's a pretty good chance there was helmet to helmet. But again, like, you know what? Ohio State still had a 14-point lead going in the fourth quarter. Like, there's no reason to give that up. You know what I mean? Latham Ransom got cooked for a deep touchdown. Denzel Burke got cooked again they got cooked in zone coverage. They get cooked in man coverage. And they missed a kick. So, they didn't execute once they got past. They got the CJ Stroud run. He got him. He did everything he could do to get him in place to win the game, and they missed the kick. And it's like, but there were plenty of times when they had other opportunities. They had the fake punt that Kirby Smart called the timeout. If he doesn't call the timeout, they had 12 men on the field. They wouldn't have gotten it anyway. So there were other opportunities. There was a 4th and 1 early in the game. Mitch Rossi got a pre-snap penalty where he was coming in motion and he starts going towards the line of scrimmage too soon, and they pick up they pick it up, and that was on their side of the 50. Like, that was, they punted because of the pre-snap penalty. But Ryan Day coached his ass off. He was extremely aggressive. I think Jim Knowles did the best he could. They had no answers because their coverage was a problem all year long, and it bit them in the ass, and that's why they lost. It wasn't a targeting or non-targeting call that cost them that game. Yes, it cost them 4 points.
Yeah,
potentially. But there's plenty of plays in a football game like that. Hell, they were lucky, quite frankly. I think Ohio State was very lucky they didn't give up a touchdown on the first drive, because if Stetson Bennett there was a read option play where Stetson Bennett kept the ball and lost like 7 yards. And if he would have given the running back is still running, there was nobody that was going to stop him. They had Darnell Washington goes out of that game early. He's Georgia's best offensive player. So they could have hung 50 on that defense if things would have gone a little bit better. Stetson Bennett didn't play particularly well for large stretches of that game. And a lot of that credit has to go to Ohio State too, but Ohio State could have just as easily given up 50 in that game. Now, they could have hung 50 on Georgia too. And they were missing guys. I mean, what Ohio State did in that game with, JSN didn't play the whole season. They didn't have any of their top running backs. Mayan Williams came in and had one of the gutsiest runs all season long for that touchdown run, but he had 3 carries in the whole game.
And I don't
They had
remember seeing
Dallin
him after
Hayden.
that.
No, he didn't. He didn't play because he was hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, they had Dallin Hayden, and they had Xavier Johnson played one of his best games. Unbelievable. That guy was a walk-on. So it was just a great game. I thought both games were really entertaining. It just sucks to be that close to having at least one Big Ten representative, but they were very, very close to having 2 Big Ten teams playing for that national championship game. And it stinks that neither one of them are in it. It stinks.
Yeah. You know what? Like, Jonathan wanted to show what he said. He of Birchbrook Innovations. He was talking about the concussion and his point. I think what he was talking about is when you said it must have been head-to-head to get a concussion, but you do not. I don't believe you need to have a head-to-head shot to get a concussion. I mean, people have concussions in car accidents where their head didn't hit anything. Your brain just needs to be rattled.
That's true.
And that hit that he took was nasty, even though maybe technically it wasn't targeting. Maybe I honestly, I don't know because I don't know what targeting is either, but you can still totally get a concussion from that. And you don't have to have a head to head. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not a play. Like I said, it was one play amongst many. It sucks that Harrison went out, but you know what? Alabama fans were saying the same thing the year before when Jameson Williams went out, that they were beating Georgia. They would have beaten them without the wide receiver. That is clearly what we have seen for sure. And this is what does give, I think, TCU a puncher's chance in this game, is the one thing you can do to Georgia's defense is you can throw deep on them. You can throw on them. You can throw on them.
Frederick says something interesting. I think Frederick is a Georgia fan. Says, glad we won it, but if Georgia and Ohio State played 10 times with both teams at full strength, they probably go 5-5. So that's magnanimous of Frederick to say that, because you're probably right.
It was really cool. I think that was really cool that there was clearly mutual respect from the coaching staffs of those programs. And it is pretty cool to see the amount of respect that has come out of Georgia fans in particular, but fans nationwide of where Ohio State's program is, because man, we were all so down in the dumps after the Michigan loss. I mean, It was bad. And to come out of this thing, I'm not one for moral victories, but it really was you can see the trajectory of Ohio State is positive. And I think they're ready. I think the biggest lesson I think that I'm hoping that Ryan Day took out of this whole thing was he coached that Georgia game so much looser. The whole team was so much looser than they were in the Michigan game. I think that loss the year before had the whole program shook, and they played so tight. I think the Ryan Day we saw against Georgia is the Ryan Day we're going to see going forward, and that should scare the shit out of everybody, because they were out for blood in that game.
Hey, how's this sound for you? Because this occurred to me. Of course, I'm a Michigan guy, so I'm probably throwing shade here. But with CJ Stroud, he picked his last game as a Buckeye to play the way he played. Does that irritate you at all, since he had 20 plus games before that and his stock was down? He was probably hearing it from his future agent, like, dude, you better play with some passion or your stock's going down in the NFL. He plays that. I mean, granted, it was a great game, dude. I mean, CJ played out of his mind. He was lights out. But he could have done that against Michigan. He could have done that in other games. Like, is that irritating for Ohio State fans? Or are you just riding that wave of saying, man, that was a great way to go out? Great job, CJ.
I think if you watched some of the games he played last year, I mean, granted, Utah was down. Clark Phillips was still playing in that game, but they were down a bunch of dudes in their secondary. But what he did to Utah in the Rose Bowl is just filthy. What he did in some of those games, I think CJ Stroud, the sad thing for CJ Stroud is that he's always going to go down as going 0 for 2 against Michigan. 0 for 2 against Michigan, no Big Ten championship games, and no wins in the playoffs. So ultimately, that is how he's going to be judged. But the fact that he left that lasting memory, I'm just happy for the kid because I think he's been, I think he's certainly one of the most skilled players that have ever played quarterback at Ohio State. And I think what happens with him, one of the reasons I don't think he ran very much, because if you remember the very first time we saw CJ Stroud play, he came in a blowout against Michigan State. And they had a read option play, and he ran 75 yards for a touchdown and outran Michigan State's team. We're like, holy shit, this kid's like Justin Fields 2.0. No, he's not. Not that he's not a good athlete. If you saw him scramble around, like he very rarely got caught, from behind when he was scrambling around. I think for him, he was like, dude, I've got Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and Travion Henderson. I got all these guys that are going to go and be big-time pros. Why am I going to scramble? Like, I'm going to scramble around and buy time and try to throw it 30 yards to Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not going to run for 15. You know, so like he would do that too much. And I think especially in the end of the Georgia game, he realizes like everybody's covered. If I don't run, we're not getting this. But it kind of almost reminded me of like, the Dwayne Haskins run against Michigan the first year when he came in and to save the day when JT Barrett got hurt in Ann Arbor. And it was like, dude, if the play's there, you got to take it. And he rose to the moment. He played out of his mind. There is part of that, Nate, where you're like, dude, you were capable of doing this the whole time. It is frustrating, but give credit too. Like, I think Michigan had a really good game plan for Ohio State. Like, they geared everything towards beating them and beating CJ Stroud, and he didn't rise to those moments. And he did against Georgia. And I thought for him in particular, I really wanted them to win that game because of the way he played. But I don't even in a loss, like I think it changed the way a lot of people looked at CJ Stroud. A lot of people. Some of his biggest critics, it shut them all up, which is great. Great for the kid. I mean, it's a super kid. I mean, by all, I've never met him, but by everything I've ever heard of him and people that I know have met him and know him, he's an awesome kid. And just by the way that Ryan Day talks about him, he tries as hard as anybody. He prepares as hard as anybody. And I'm sure that no one's harder on themselves than he is. But, I think that part of that was, I really think a lot of that also had to do with the way Ryan Day coached this year. I think he was tight, and I think his quarterback played tight a lot of the year. And certainly not having Jackson Smith-Njigba. Think about this. Last year they had Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Both guys are in the running for offensive rookie of the year in the NFL. That's how good those dudes are. And the dude who was the best receiver on the team, production-wise, was Jackson Smith-Njigba. And he was gone all year long. So his security blanket from last year was gone, and he was relying on new guys filling into roles. And even for as good as Marvin Harrison Jr. is, he's still got flaws to his game. He's still a young guy.
And he's a possession receier too, right? I mean, he's more than that, obviously.
He can cook you. I think he's an all-around.
He's not going to get you an 80-yard touchdown.
He was
not that type of receiver.
He was cooking.
Not that he's not capable of doing that.
He was cooking. He was cooking Georgia. He had five catches for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, he was cooking them.
It's definitely not a mystery that they scored no more touchdowns after he left the game, right?
No,
because I know
not.
Kirby Smart was even saying, and the Georgia players were saying they had no answer for him. No answer.
No.
I mean, TJ scramble around and throw a 40-yard touchdown pass to him when he wasn't really even open. I mean, it was amazing.
Guys, who's going to win? Simple
win what? TCU versus Georgia?
There's only one game left.
Georgia's winning. Georgia's winning that game. I think Georgia's winning that game by more than 10.
Yeah. How about you?
I'm not saying TCU doesn't have a shot, but I think Georgia's going to beat them.
You know how the Alabama versus Kansas State game went?
Yep.
It's going to be similar. And Kansas State beat TCU. But I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I would love to see TCU take it all. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I would love to see TCU take it.
I would be so happy if Hacksaw Max Duggan.
Yeah, you've been on him for being the Heisman this whole time.
I mean, come on, he surprised everybody.
Yeah, you were on Hacksaw Duggan before it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, those things that like a couple of those routes that popped against Michigan are not going to pop against Georgia. Like when you're running drag routes all the way across the field, throw into Quentin Johnson behind the line of scrimmage, he's going to get his, but not like that. Like, Michigan had one shot at a tackle, missed the tackle, the guy goes 75 yards for a touchdown. And
that was more about Michigan than it was TCU.
That's what I'm saying. That's not those kind of busts don't happen against Georgia. And the other thing, Nate, I think you hit it on the head earlier on when you were talking about the disrespect. They were talking about, because I heard some conversations with TCU coaches and players that they were like, they really took some of those media comments that McCarthy and the Michigan guys made that game week too hard, and they were fired up to beat Michigan because Michigan had talked that shit, and Georgia's not going to do that. Georgia never talks shit. It was the Ohio State players, like when Ohio State's defensive guys said, we have the advantages across the board against this offense. And they immediately, and I'm saying like immediately in the same press conference what the Georgia players were saying, told them that they said that, and they did not take the bait. Offensive coordinator didn't take the bait. Stetson Bennett didn't take the bait. Nobody took the bait. They were nothing but complimentary the whole time. They were super complimentary. They are not going to give TCU any bulletin board material, and they're going to go out there, and there's no way they're going to get this close after winning a game like that Ohio State game. They're going to beat TCU. They're going to beat them.
Michigan was entitled. They were an entitled team going into that, and it was disgusting to see. And Ohio State is a comparison.
They should have known better, Nate, because you said that in the lead up to the game that the year before they acted like they were happy to be there, and their experience should have carried them through, and they were extremely immature in some of those.
They took it to the completely other end of that, basically.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, they came in overconfident. But you know what? I think something similar happened to Ohio State too. I mean, it's not a mystery that they played that good against Georgia. They really had it in them. I think Ohio State kind of, because of just how everything was falling in to that game, Michigan was going to come in and lose. Ohio State probably believed that before it actually happened. I think the coaches probably thought they were just going to run roughshod over Michigan. And I think they had a little bit of that, what does Saban call it, rat poison? They may have had a little bit of that there, and I think that affected Ohio State. Same way it happened Michigan, and they just got behind and couldn't get back. Of course, Ohio State didn't. They didn't say anything stupid like Michigan.
Yeah, I don't know that was the problem. I think the biggest issue with Ohio State was they just played so tight. They made all the mistakes. They made all the mental mistakes, all those problems. And on top of that, you had the same problems that they've had on defense all year. I mean, even Maryland put up points on that defense like crazy. It was a wild game, that Maryland game. And I think everybody was like, oh, well, they're just looking ahead a little bit too much to Michigan. No, they just have some serious problems on their defensive, on the defensive side, stopping big plays. And it happened all year. So you compound that with all the execution problems they had against Michigan, and it snowballed. In the Georgia game, it was all the explosive plays. I mean, if they could have gotten just one more stop, and I don't, I heard criticism like, why are you going man-to-man coverage when you're down 14 or when you're up 14 in the fourth quarter? And I kind of get it, but they went to zone and got shredded too. Like they weren't getting pressure on Bennett when they needed to, and their coverage was just getting diced apart. And it was. Unfortunately, they just didn't have enough firepower left to get one more touchdown or one more score in the fourth quarter. It's the money quarter, and it was unfortunate, but it was just one of those deals where you just go, I was just proud of them because they came in confident, they played loose, and they hung right there, and they could have just as easily, just as well have won that game. And even Kirby Smart said the same thing. And so I think, I do feel like the programs And I almost feel like Michigan should feel great about themselves, and they have to feel, I would think they feel pretty down right now compared to where they were, after the Ohio State game. And Ohio State couldn't have been lower. And even though they lost to Georgia, is on a much better trajectory right now, at least the way the way they feel about themselves coming out of that Georgia game than Michigan does coming out of the TCU game, especially with all this stuff going on with Harbaugh.
Hey, you know what? And Brian, I think we've probably kept you longer than you were planning to be here, but there's one more, and there's a comment from Ryan Day's Beard.
Love it. Just for men, baby.
Just awesome.
Sponsored by Just for Men.
How about Ryan?
McCord or Brown next year?
Love it. I love that question so much. And the answer is I don't know, and I cannot wait for the spring. And all I know is no. But I'll tell you this right now: the reason why it almost doesn't matter is there were dudes in the portal that Ohio State could have gone after. I don't know if they had the NIL to go get Drake May. But I think Drake May there was at least some back channel conversation. I'm speculating here. I don't have any sources on that, but they didn't, Drake May went back to North Carolina. DJU was certainly in play, and they passed on him. Like, they did not go out and get a Sam Hartman I'm sure if Sam Hartman, if Ohio State wanted Sam Hartman, he'd be a Buckeye. Like, there are a bunch of dudes in the portal with experience, and they passed on all of them. And it reminds me so much of that first year with Stroud, when we talked about it in the run up to, I think, last week's show, when Chris Olave could have gone pro as a junior and came back because he knew that CJ Stroud was that dude. Yeah. And I think they know that they've got something in house between one of those guys, whoever wins the job. And I think it'll be McCord. That would be my gut if I were betting. But, we all saw the same thing. Like, just go back to when Burrow and Haskins were competing for that job. By all accounts, Joe Burrow was going to be the starting quarterback, but then he broke his hand. And Haskins took it. Yeah, he broke his hand. And Haskins took that job, and that he was going to be the starting quarterback. And at that point, they talked to Burrow and his dad, and Burrow ended up transferring to LSU. But that, it was one of those. He was going to be the backup to. I believe he was going to be the backup to JT, and he broke his hand. And Haskins ended up being the backup for that whole last season. And then coming into the fall camp, Haskins was ahead of him. So, he was going to be ahead of him
against Michigan.
Yeah, coming out of the spring game, he had the lead, and so Burrow transferred. But the point is, like, an injury can change the trajectory. There's so much time between now and fall camp, but this will be one of the most interesting off seasons for, quarterback position, obviously. And then I think the other one to watch, and we've already seen some movement in the transfer portal, both coming and going, but the secondary's got to get better for Ohio State. And I will say, before I get off, one of the coolest things that we saw was everybody talked about how was Ohio State going to match up with the tight ends of Georgia.
Yeah.
Sonny Styles.
One got hurt.
Sonny Styles played when Washington was in. Sonny Styles got run, and that kid should be in high school still. He played in the semifinal game and played pretty damn well, and that kid is going to be a superstar. So, with CJ Hicks that they got out of Alter here in Dayton, granted he hurt his knee, but that kid's going to be a really, really good one. They had a really good linebacking recruiting class. Sonny Styles is a kid I'm just super excited about in Noel's 3-safety system. And then, they got a transfer out of Syracuse, an established safety again. So it's going to be just fascinating to watch how this offseason unfolds for both programs. Obviously, we're watching Harbaugh and the coaching, the coaching soap opera with him, and then they're pretty set with their roster. But then with Ohio State, certainly the quarterback position is going to be something to watch. But I have all the confidence in the world that Ryan Day is going. He's a quarterback. He's a quarterback guru, man. He's going to get.
He'll be fine.
Everybody he coaches goes in the first round of the NFL draft. So why would we? In Ryan Day, I trust whoever he picks is going to be good. The other one's probably not going to stay, but that was, that was another huge reason why they flipping the Kleinholz kid from Washington late in this cycle was so big, coming on the heels of Raiola decommitting. It's really important to have a couple quality guys in your program. And, they've been grooming these guys for, Devin Brown 1 year, Kyle McCord 2 years. So, there's no reason to think that whoever's going to step in is not going to be really, really good. I actually think, and I was kind of saying it to some folks that I talked to kind of around the program, not necessarily in the program, but that cover the program earlier this season. I've been saying from the beginning, I think Ohio State's national championship year is next year. And I was saying it before this year.
I remember you saying that last year. Yeah.
Yep.
Or
because I feel
this
like
year even happened.
Yep, because this defense, I feel strongly that the defense will take another jump with another year of Noel's system and JT, with JT and Sawyer, another year of those guys' development, and we saw more Tyleek Williams and more Mike Hall Jr. These younger guys are going to get more opportunity, and the offense should still be really good. I mean, they're going to lose a couple of offensive tackles, and that's going to be really important to watch what they do on the offensive line. But offensively, a lot of the skill guys are coming back. Harrison's coming back. Egbuka's coming back. Travion Henderson should still be there. Mayan Williams should be back. Dallin Hayden got run. We're getting Evan Pryor back. The tight end room is pretty much staying together. If they can, and I think the offensive line will be okay. They may not be quite as dynamic with those guys on the outside, but they'll be pretty good, and there's no reason to not be optimistic about the defense. So I think Ohio State will be right back in this thing next year. I really do.
Yeah, they'll just need some safety help. Basically,
Yep.
I hear they need some safety. I know they've got that cool named kid, Sonny Styles. Sounds like a card player, Sonny Styles, like a guy you don't want to play poker with. But
his dad, he's another guy who his dad played in the NFL. They got a bunch of these guys, and that's what's cool about a couple of these early enrollees are guys who are going to play. Kai Stokes is a guy I'm really excited about. He's kind of the center field safety, kind of a Malik Hooker type. He didn't play a ton this year, but he's really exciting. I think he's going to be a really, really good one. And then they got a couple of those guys that'll probably come back. I'm not sure that. Like Lathan Ransom, I'm not sure what he's doing as far as going to the pros. We know Ronnie Hickman's going and Tanner McAllister is going to be gone, but they should be fine. I am a little worried about corner, and I am worried about that. I am a little worried that the cornerback coach that they hired this past year, I'm not sure if he's the guy, and that's a little worrisome. And we just had a pretty high profile freshman who went in the portal. So, it'd have been nice to have landed one of the bigger transfer portal corners, but they're just right now, I don't think that the teams in the Midwest are playing on the same footing NIL wise as some of these other programs. And that's going to hurt them. When it comes down to these 50-50 type players, but if they can get the corner situation shored up, if offensive tackle is shored up, Ohio State's going to be right back in this thing and might be good enough to win it all next year.
Yeah, and you know what? I think both Michigan and Ohio State are
if Maryland doesn't beat them,
be strong.
If Maryland doesn't beat them,
if Maryland doesn't beat them, we'll have to dedicate an entire show.
Maryland has given Ohio State fits.
They really have.
In 2018, we gave him more than fits.
Yeah.
That was Diego's going to be like, that was back in 1976.
No, dude, that was a ridiculous.
No, that was a ridiculous game.
5-yard pass. If he makes a 5-yard pass, if Piggy completes that, we win. Simple as that. Like, what are the odds of that? Like, 52, 50. It would have been 53, 52. I mean, come on. Maryland should not be scoring 50-something on Ohio State. But anyway, I want to address one thing. Ryan Day's beard should rename his handle to Ryan Day's eye bags because those those things are out of control. He's younger than I am.
Dude,
he's 44.
44 in football coach years is like, 72, man. Like football does bad stuff to you, especially when you're like obsessing because one, you came off another embarrassing loss to your rival. And then, oh, by the way, for your trouble, you get to play the best team in the country.
Well, he looked like shit. Ryan Day.
He hadn't slept. No, he was, it was eat, sleep, film. I probably didn't even see his kids over the holidays. Like, poor guy. Football coaching, man, it's a rough gig.
Ryan Day.
It's a rough gig.
Ryan Day looks like Nate sounds.
Yeah, thanks. Well, Ryan Day's beard just threw you some laughy faces. So
Yeah,
he coached a lot better than that, though, man.
Change your handle, my friend. Change your.
Let me tell you, one of my favorite things of the whole semifinal deal was certainly in that game was just watching. I've loved seeing that little clip of Ryan Day losing his shit on the sideline. Is so cool because like he was so into that game, he was so fired up. It was just like that's what you want out of your coach. You know what I mean? It was just like his enthusiasm for being in that game and wanting to win it and having confidence in himself. And by all accounts, he was super loose in the all week in the media sessions and then in his interactions with people. And that's like I said, I just really, really like the guy. I respect him, and I'm glad that he is the CEO of the football program that I root for because he's like the kind of leader that you would want to have. He's the kind of guy that you'd want to be leading your team. And it was frustrating to come up short, but I know he'll be back. I think he's the right guy for that program. I think there are some questions, as there probably will be, every year about other potential assistants and things. But I think it really there's no reason to think if both of these programs. I think I said last week to you, Nate, that I'm firmly one of those Ohio State fans that feels like it's important for Michigan to be good. It's good for the conference. It's good for the rivalry. It's good for college football when Michigan's good. And, if Harbaugh, especially if Harbaugh does stay and they have some continuity and both programs, the Midwestern programs, can get their NIL shit together, there's no reason to think that the Big Ten can't level up and that they can't consistently have a bunch of teams represented in this playoff. I mean, they're leveling up with the coaching hires they've had. I think Fickle going to Wisconsin is a big upgrade. I think the Matt Rule is already an upgrade at Nebraska, and you can tell by Raiola decommitting and going over there. And then you got USC and UCLA coming in, so it's there for the taking. The Big Ten could end up being I don't know that you're ever going to do it every year, but they can certainly contend with the SEC. They did this year.
Well,
I'd like to see this be the norm.
Michigan is starting to make some noise in NIL. This is a while ago. They announced that they were the first NCAA program. Oh my god,
dude! Is he taking bong rips like right before? Is he taking like bong rips right before he takes his take? Hot take coming through.
First NCAA program to allow the student athletes to make money on their jersey names. So if you buy a JJ McCarthy jersey, you're getting a percentage of that on their names.
But Nate, that helps like four guys. That's like four guys. Nobody's buying the center's jersey. That's not. No, you wouldn't. No, you would not. Stop that nonsense. First of all, and that's great for like four players. That's cool, but they've still got a long way to go, and you can see it in the portal as much as anything, where if you're going to play the portal game, then you need to be able to get these top guys, because it's really sucks when you got programs like Alabama who already are, have the number one recruiting class, and then they go out and take 2 or 3 of the top 5 guys available in the portal. That's rough. When it gets really, really difficult to compete with those teams. But
yeah, the recruiting, and the free agency.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
But that was what was so cool about this year is you had 2 Big Ten teams in this thing. The Big Ten had a pretty good bowl season, even with the semifinal losses. I mean, I think they were, there's and with the coaching hires that they've had, the coaches that they've had over the hires over the last few years, I think they've got some really good ones. I really do like Mike Locksley a lot. At Maryland, he's one of my favorite. Like when you're talking about offensive football, I love watching his offenses. They're so fun to watch. But there's so many good. I think there are some really good coaches out there, and then they're, obviously bringing USC and UCLA into the conference. So they're set up for this thing when playoffs expand to be able to get 3 or 4 teams in. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see. It really is. No one's going to especially going away from divisions.
No one's going to play any preseason or non-conference tough games at that point anymore when you got that schedule.
I don't know that that's the case at all. I think that if anything, it should be just the opposite because, Ohio State's going to be in the playoff every year. That's what when like my wife is a Penn State fan, and she's been griping about the playoff expanding forever, and I'm like, fine, go ahead. She's like, that doesn't bother you? No, of course not, because Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia are going to be in this thing every year. It won't matter. Like it doesn't matter what your seed is.
Brian, can we address the elephant in the room?
We had multiple elephants in the room. We already did that.
No, the elephant is in the room is why can't we see Brian's beautiful bald head? That is the elephant in the room.
So I've been exercised to a corner of my upstairs bedroom because the kids and dogs and no one leaves me alone. So this is not the spot for like if this was like Room Raider, I'd get like 1. So I'm not. I don't know.
First of all, you're like a local celebrity in Columbus. So why are we not showing your face?
No, not at all. And
you're a radio celebrity.
No, it's been too long for that. And anyway, I don't care about all that. I just like the fact that we can come on and bullshit about stuff that we care way too much about. It's fun.
You need FaceTime. You need FaceTime.
I will do. I promise you, Diego. I'll make you this promise right now. If you come on the next show that I'm on with Nate, I will put my face on camera again because I have done it a couple times and then I always catch shit. And the guys are like, "All right, man, this was fun. This was really fun. It was great hearing your voice again. It's been too long."
Yeah, definitely for sure. And you know what? I think we need to do a recruiting show. And I will study up on my Ohio State and Michigan recruiting. But I think the next show obviously will be a breakdown of the national title game. But I think after that, we got to keep this going and start doing some recruiting shows.
Well, you know what? That's a good point, Diego. That, and I was actually thinking, in the off season, things do slow down. You can't. There's always going to be something to talk about with recruiting, NIL, drama from coaching. But one thing I would love to do, if anyone wants to see this, let me know. Or what games I would love to come in, do something like this, and have all of us watch some of the Ohio State versus Michigan Classic games. Ooh. And relive some of those. Maybe we skip the Rich Rod era, but.
What about Brady Hoke? What about Brady Hoke?
Yeah, we can maybe one of those games.
I mean, there's.
But throw in let us know what games do we want to see? We don't have to talk about it now, but I would love to just do a very like a 20-minute game, go over it, just kind of the highlights of it, and just go over and relive all that. One of us will always be in pain from watching that. And one of us will always be watching that with great hopes and just reliving those times.
I would think really that one would be right up Matt's alley because he loves those. He's always constantly bringing up all those older games, and I have recency bias because I'm just thinking about the stuff that just happened. But the other thing I would say that I like to do is sometimes it's fun to go back and rewatch a fairly recent game, like either from this year or the year before, where you can go back and when you don't have the emotion of the game, to go back and break some stuff down. And I've really gotten into that more over the last few years of really digging in more of the X's and O's and following coaches and, just following scheme. It's stuff that, that's why I love this sport is so great, because you can have a very casual interest in football and enjoy it, or you can do an absolute deep dive into the deepest rabbit hole you can even possibly imagine and still not know everything and still enjoy the game. So it's a blast, but it really does come down a lot of times to those little things. And that's just fun for me. Like, any game that it'd be fun to go back and rewatch the Ohio State Maryland game from this year, or the Ohio State, even though it's going to suck. I have not gone back and watched the Ohio State Michigan game again, but I will at some point.
They're always emotional. If you're going to watch your own team lose to your rival, it's always going to be emotional. I'll tell you what, I can't go back and watch the 2001 game, but that's one I would like to maybe come back on here and take a look at. Yeah, and just go over it in the off season, when there's not a lot going on. If there's any games, Michigan, Ohio State games you want to see, we'll throw them up.
Nate, I got a question for you. How does it feel to have lived most of your life in Ohio, but to be a Michigan fan? How does that feel?
Fine. I mean, it actually enhanced my love of the Wolverines by coming here and being a part of that. When I was living in Michigan, I actually wasn't as passionate about it because I hated it. It was really there. You had Michigan State. Michigan State fans lived right next door to you. You know how annoying that is? I mean, they were right next door to you all year long. If you lost that game, it was terrible. It's like losing to Ohio State here, basically. So it just transferred the passion from one team to the other. I mean, Ohio State was always the biggest game, but being here and losing this many years, that sucks.
Can I ask both of you a question? How is it that neither one of us, or that the three of us, including Matt, I guess so it would be four, and maybe even some other friends that we don't even need to name, have not been to the Ohio State game in Columbus together, or the Michigan game in Ann Arbor? I mean, it's ridiculous. We've known each other. I mean, B-Weave, you've known us, or you've known me for maybe, I don't know, 5-6 years. But the rest
I think it's more like 10. It's crazy. Okay. Oh yeah, I think going back, it's one of the weirdest things this whole friend group, because I have seen you guys face to face so little, but I talk with you guys more than a lot of people that I see on a more regular basis. So it's really wild. But yeah, I mean, it would be cool. I've never been to the Big House for a game.
Oh, you've never been?
I've never been.
I've been to the Big House. Come on.
Yeah, I've never been. No, I'm serious. It's one of those things and not only that, but that's one of those things that I would love to, even though I'm not a fan, I would love to go to see a bunch of those really big stadiums in the SEC. I'd love to see, I've never been to Happy Valley. I'd love to go to some of those venues, because going to a big legit college football game at a college site, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like the atmosphere. No other sport I've ever been to. The only thing I can possibly imagine that is like that is like going to a really, really big soccer match in Europe or something, where it's freaking crazy and everybody's into it. But I'd love to go to Nyland. I'd love to go down to, Alabama. I'd love to go see a game in, even Texas A&M. I did see one at Texas. I was at the game. I was dating a girl who was an alum of Texas. We went to a game in Austin. They played UCLA, and UCLA beat them 66-3. It was when Maurice Jones-Drew was playing for UCLA, and they kicked the shit out of Texas. It was the worst defeat they'd ever had. It was fantastic. It was so great. But yeah, I mean, I think it'd just be cool to go, see some of those venues. But yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I'd be up for it. I'd definitely be up for it.
Listen, I've been to Texas. I've been to Michigan. I've been to Penn State multiple times. I love going to college football games. I would love to see. I mean, the last time we saw each other was the only time we've seen each other in person, which was in DC.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that one time. And so I think we should make a fucking point to do Ohio State, Michigan, and you guys can even come up to College Park. I've been lobbying for this with JB, with Plessinger, with the whole crew. And all I get is fucking bullshit promises. End up in they're basically lies.
Maryland plays. They're going to play in Columbus this next year, right?
I'm in.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm a man of my word, and sadly, Nate and JB and Matt are not, and Jason are not their word. They're not. They're
those games are usually are in the back end of the schedule, and in Maryland, it's beautiful weather there in November, right? That's what I hear.
In Maryland,
It's
not terrible.
No, not at all. That's probably why we're not coming there to see those games. But we keep doing this long. Maybe we'll get press credentials. And we can all go.
You're suggesting it's that cold. I'm saying in November lately, at least in the last 15, 20 years, it's not been that bad. It was colder. I feel like it used to be colder. But it's not Michigan, dude. It's not Ohio.
It doesn't matter when you're going to a game. You just be prepared. I mean, I went with my wife to she's a big Steeler fan. We went to a Steelers playoff game a few years ago in January. It was cold as shit, but you just bundle up for it, and you're in the crowd, and everybody's miserable, and it's fun. It was a great time, So it's not a big deal. I would love to do that though, man, because I think it'd be cool. It's been a while. I haven't been to an Ohio State game in Columbus in a few years, and I've gotten way too complacent where I like to just sit in front of my TV and yell and holler and do all that shit. And it is cool, especially post COVID, to go back out and be around people and do stuff,
Yes.
Brett Beaver with his 30 degrees.
30 degrees.
It can be 30 degrees.
You mean 95% of the time it's 30 degrees?
It can be 50 degrees in November. Climate change has been good for football games.
For football games, right? In November. Yeah, no, it's
Brett,
it's fun.
I promise you, there's been plenty of 50-degree days in November in Maryland. But anyway, the point is, we got to get the gang together.
Let's do it.
And we got to fucking do it. But I swear to God, Nate is, I don't know what his deal is. His wife basically tells him no, and he tells us yes. I don't know what's going on.
I'm not the first person that's happened to.
Yeah, and Matt is the same. Yeah, Matt's the same way. He tells me yes, and then his wife tells him no. And then JB is busy making tummy sticks or tent sticks or whatever the fuck he's making. Trying to come up with a business idea that will ultimately fail. And he
man.
So, I can tell Diego's starting to be about half in the bag.
Yeah, Diego's throwing
this is about
darts,
when we're going to have to wrap this up.
Well, listen, I want to fucking make it happen. Let's commit to something, for Christ's sake. Nate said we're going to die by 59 after the Jim Harbaugh comment. So we might as well do something before we're dead.
I commit to you, Diego.
I agree.
Let's do a fucking tailgate at Ann Arbor or at Columbus or at College Park. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let me see here. I'm
checking
next year's schedule.
Yeah, let's do it. And you know what? Any fans, I shouldn't say fans, any listeners who may be fans of us who want to come to our tailgate, they can come to our tailgate.
Heck
God,
yeah.
Don't roll your eyes. Don't roll your eyes.
The Terps play in Columbus the 7th of October.
There you go. I'm in.
That's plenty early enough. Let's do it.
I'm in. So let's make this happen.
In fact, I think I believe that is the first. Conference game for Ohio State, unless I'm missing something. Maybe this isn't the full schedule, but it looks like, the 7th, October 7th, it looks like they play Maryland in Columbus. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's do this. let's make everybody commit by buying a non-refundable plane ticket and swearing an oath to this game.
I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's the right game. I was just looking. They open at Indiana to start the schedule, start the season. So they start with a conference game. Then they've got they're at Notre Dame the 2 weeks before, so they'll have a bye. Looks like there's a bye, and then they're going to play Maryland to start the legit Big Ten schedule. So that'll be a fun one. That'd be fun.
October 6th, right?
October 7th.
Oh, October 7th. All right, I'm going to send a fucking email right now, and I want fucking commitments. No bullshit. No bullshit.
No, I'm in, man.
Okay, because you got to tell your fucking wives that there's no backing out, and this is like your hall pass for the year. Okay,
I'm going to get a conference call with you and all the wives.
Yeah,
for
whatever
all of you to work that out.
Whatever it takes. I'm a single man. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I've earned it by failing at relationships for 30 years. So I can do whatever the fuck I want. Let's fucking make it happen.
All right, man.
Wait, I hear Google doesn't like cursing in the first 8 minutes, 8 seconds.
Yeah, you saved them all up. You did well, Diego. You waited up.
I saved them till the end. All right.
You did well, bro.
So Ryan Day's beard, I hope next time you're on, you're going to be Ryan Day's eye bags. And everybody else, I hope you guys come back. We're gonna sum up the national title game, and we're gonna start talking recruiting, and maybe watch fucking old Brady Hoke losses to Ohio State and Rich Rod losses to Ohio State.
Hey! We don't have to go that far back. Harbaugh has plenty of losses.
Hey, we're going back to the 70s.
Can I say one other thing? I have become a big Ohio State fan these last fucking, I don't know, few months talking Ohio State, Michigan. I've realized that Ohio State's my second team. When Maryland is not playing, Ohio
Smart
State.
Man.
Dude, I'm telling you, I was pissed when Ohio State lost. I was super pissed.
Diego, are you trying to say that Ohio State is number 2?
Not
because I agree with you. If you're saying Ohio State is number 2,
not in the
bathroom. I 100% agree with you.
Hey, we're going to finish number 2 in the AP poll.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's wrap this up.
All right,
before
guys.
Diego keeps getting us in more trouble with our wives. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We'll all talk later. Have a great evening.
Don't forget, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Smash the like and subscribe.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Hopefully you'll be back to listen to us within a few days.
Someone needs to play the end music. You know, the music they play at the Oscars on Diego right now.
Yeah. Right.
I'm doing that right now. This is the Oscars music. See you guys. Thanks, everyone.